A reading from the book of Exodus. Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. Leading the flock across the desert, he came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There an angel of the Lord appeared to Moses in fire, flaming out of a bush. As he looked on, he was surprised to see that the bush, though on fire, was not consumed. So Moses decided, I must go over to look at this remarkable sight and see why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw him coming over to look at it more closely, God called out to him from the bush, Moses, Moses. He answered, Here I am. God said, Come no nearer. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. I am the God of your fathers, he continued, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. But the Lord said, I have witnessed the affliction of my people in Egypt, and have heard their cry of complaint against their slave drivers, so I know well what they are suffering. Therefore I have come down to rescue them from the hands of the Egyptians, and lead them out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Moses said to God, But when I go to the Israelites and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you, if they ask me what is his name, what am I to tell them? God replied, I am who am. Then he added, This is what you shall tell the Israelites. I am sent me to you. God spoke further to Moses, Thus shall you say to the Israelites, The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever. Thus am I to be remembered through all generations. The word of the Lord. The burning bush is one of those enduring images in the Christian tradition. For 2,000 years, we've been meditating on what it means, what it teaches us. And there's plenty there to learn about God, God who says, I am who am, who reveals his name to Moses. But for the moment, I want to focus on Moses in this passage. Because this passage, the burning bush, is also the call of Moses. And I see in it a conversion, if you will, a conversion of Moses. How does it begin? Moses is out tending the flocks of his father-in-law. This is his daily activity. This is his job. It's his normal life. He's out tending the flocks when he sees something incredible, something he's never seen before. A bush that's burning, that's on fire, but not consumed, that continues to burn without being consumed. So he decides to investigate. As he approaches, suddenly he hears something. God calls him, Moses, Moses. God calls his name. And Moses responds, Here I am. From this attraction, a relationship has been established. Moses was drawn in by the bush, and now he and God are beginning to talk to one another. And it's then that God can give Moses a command. Remove your sandals, because the place where you're standing is holy ground. From that relationship that's been established, God can give a command to Moses, and Moses is ready to hear it and to obey. Moses is ready to change in some way. But the fathers of the church focus especially on that first part, the attraction, the drawing in. And they made a great deal about what Moses says, I must go over. I must go over. Some other translations say cross over. I must go over. I must cross over. And they see in this go over, cross over, the moment of conversion, when a new dimension of life is opened up to Moses, and he's enabled to cross over into a new way of living. This conversion, then, is motivated not by fear, not by God telling Moses, follow me or else. It's motivated by attraction. It's motivated by Moses being drawn in, being invited to go over, to cross over. Moses is drawn to God by flames, not the fire of hell, but a divine fire, a fire that evokes wonder, that touches something deep inside of him, something that goes to the very heart of his being, something that makes him say, I must go over, I must cross over and investigate. This longing, this desire to find something more, to explore new dimensions of our life, it's key, it's critical to our human experience. Jean Vanier, the founder of L'Arche, talks about this longing that's at the heart of each human person. Each of us has this deep and abiding longing that in some ways will never be satisfied in this life. The book of Ecclesiastes says that God has put the timeless in our hearts so that nothing in time can totally satisfy us. The problem, though, is that all of us, each and every one of us, is so good at finding ways to distract ourselves from this longing, to turn away from it, to numb the pain of longing. We're good at finding ways to try to find finite things to fill this infinite desire that we feel. And so we come to the season of Lent. Lent is a time when we give up something or when we take on extra practices. And I would say that it parallels what Moses does in this passage. See, Moses encounters God in his daily life, but he also encounters God in the wilderness, in a place that's bare and barren with not much going on around him. And this is a common theme in the Scriptures, of going into the wilderness to find God. We see it, too, among the saints, who often went to the desert or the monastery to seek the Lord in silence. The wilderness, the desert, is a place where we strip away all but the essentials in our lives. We take away all the distractions, all the other desires that we cling to, so it's just us and God. We can get in touch with those deep desires and feel the pull, hear the call of God coming from the depths of our hearts. And I would argue that this is what our Lenten practices are supposed to be doing for us. They're creating a wilderness in our hearts, clearing out what we don't need so that we can hear the call of the one who we do. They're reminding us of what we're really longing for. None of the things in time, none of the finite things in our lives, but the timeless, the infinite, God himself. And it's from recognizing that desire, and only from recognizing the one who can satisfy it, that we can be converted like Moses, that we can bring ourselves to do the will of God, to hear his commands, and to obey them, that we can come to live out the vocation that God has called us to. Recognizing this desire, recognizing that God is the one who answers it, we can then go to live our lives for him, knowing that he hears our cries as he heard the cries of Israel, and knowing that he will lead us, just like he led his people, to a place where we will want for nothing.